Alright, so here we are recording part 2 of the Many-Me project in computer art, and what I'd like to show you in this part 2 video is how to add the shadows below your figure silhouettes, and also how to add this kind of a gradient that makes your shadows look like they're fading lighter towards the bottom of the screen. So if I was going to, I'll take off one of my shadows here and recreate another one. If I was going to recreate a shadow for this layer, this green figure, I would go ahead and create a duplicate layer, and you can name it. I named this one the green shadow because this one is the shadow for the green figure. And what I would take is I would take that new layer. I could use my fill bucket to fill it a green. Let's see, I have to bring up my color picker here and select the color gray and fill that shape so then it's grayed, and then you could take that and flip it. So we would go to image and transform, or rather rotate, and then flip that layer vertically. Okay, so now it's upside down. I could then take it and squash it so that it's smaller and fits right underneath your figure. Now you want to make sure that it lines up with the feet. You don't want any spaces really in between the shadow and the figure, so I'll take this and nudge it up just a little bit. What I do notice is that this layer is actually over the top of the green figure, so I'll move it below so that it's actually underneath where the feet are of the figure. So it looks like the shadow is actually coming from underneath. So there shouldn't be any white space there. And then lastly, once you've done that process for each one of your 5 silhouettes and you have shadows below each figure, you're going to want to add one final layer to the very top of your entire project. And that would be a gradient that goes from transparent to white. And that's what this layer 11 is here. So when I turn this off, you can see that all my shadows are really dark and really solid, and that looks okay, but it has a better effect and what looks more realistic when we add this gradient over the top that kind of has the shadows fade lighter as they get further from the figure, which is what they should do. So if we're going to add a gradient over the top of this whole thing, so I'll actually just go ahead and delete this layer for now. Yes, delete layer 11, and I'll add a new one in. And on this layer, I'm going to go ahead and take my gradient tool and click on the area up here where I can choose my type of gradient. And actually, it looks like this is pretty close to actually what we want as a preset, because if it shows this grid in the background, that means it's transparent on one side. But let's just take one black and white. This works. So at one end, we want there to be pure white, so we'll keep the white there. And on this end, we want this to be transparent. So where it says color, actually we want to, where do we want to take that from? We want to take this, and let's click on this, and actually take the, click on the top square right here above the where you would choose the color. So not the bar where you choose the color, but the one across from it. And that opens up this window where we can change the opacity of this color. And so we'll turn that opacity down to 0. Again, like we said, we can see the grid behind this. That means it's transparent and then fading to white. So we'll click OK, and then click and drag our gradient on this top layer. As you can see, I did it backwards, so I'm going to back up and start at the top and move down. Alright, so now I'm noticing, I think I have this style gradient as not just a regular linear gradient. Now I think I have the right option. I'm going to click one more time, but not down far enough. So you're going to have to experiment a little bit with how far down to actually make your shadows appear more realistic. I think you start really low and keep it low, and that looks pretty good, but I'm going to go even lower. Alright. One last time. There we go. So that looks pretty good, but again, I think that My gradient maybe has something else. You know, I think what I want to do is take this color and turn this color to white actually as well, even though it's supposed to be transparent. I think it's making this gray line in the middle of my gradient. So I'm going to make that white as well, and then try this one more time. Alright, so that's much closer to what I was going for. I'm going to back up a couple steps and actually trash this layer for a second, add a new one, and add that gradient just at the bottom there. So that adds just that nice touch of helping the shadows appear a little more realistic and showing depth in the space. So once you finish your shadows for each one of your 5 figures, you have completed the project. And make sure you consider, how your figures relate or interact with each other and how they are positioned across the composition of your page.